Waking up to the biggest news. Trump finally spoke with his good friend Xi Jinping by phone. She invited Trump and his wife to visit China at their convenience. And Trump responded politely, affirming that leaders of both nations should maintain friendship. However, they did not discuss the current tense trade relations, leaving those to technical bureaucrats. Trump has recently missed Xi, saying that she is great but too tough, making deals difficult. Many see their call as a sign of improving diplomatic ties. Some even claiming Trump's economic mess and China's tariff war injuries necessitate compromise. So, can this call, awaited by Trump for months, really improve China-US relations? My view is simple. No. The comprehensive competition between China and the US is irreconcilable. A winner must emerge. Unless the US acknowledges China's strength, abandons its delusion of defeating China, respects China's core interests, and substantially lifts trade suppression and tech blockades, China won't make real concessions. US and Western companies have complained to their governments that, although China lifted its rare earth export ban, its licensing system has caused supply shortages, pushing many firms toward production crises. Trump has repeatedly condemned China for violating Geneva negotiation agreements, threatening retaliation. Yet, China has already faced all US retaliation tactics, from tariffs to bans on high-end chip exports, EDA software supply restrictions, and hassling Chinese students. China's government simply doesn't care. Under 7 years of US tech blockades, China has largely achieved its Made in China 2025 goals. Though China paid a heavy price for boasting about its tech prowess, triggering early US sanctions, it wasn't without gains. The US, unprepared systemically, grossly underestimated China's strength, rashly targeting China, giving it ample time to respond. Now, China is closing in on the US in chips and AI technology, achieving a fully independent ecosystem from chip design and manufacturing to operating systems and AI models. The harder the US sanctions, the larger the market for China's domestic ecosystem. In hardware, where China excels, cars, shipbuilding, aerospace, robotics, drones, the US has nearly lost its ability to compete equally. So, China has no reason to compromise. More importantly, China has adopted a defensive counterattack stance in the China-US competition, enduring 7 years of US blows. Now, at the moment of counterattack, why would China stop without US concessions? China's sanctions on the US and its allies, like rare earth restrictions, must inflict serious harm once used, as they're a one-time tool. If China relaxes rare earth controls without major gains, letting Western firms stockpile, and the US reneges on agreements to blockade China again, China loses a key countermeasure. We must understand that, while she is China's head of state, the China-US trade war strategy is a complex product of countless technical bureaucrats. Once national competition fully unfolds, it cannot be halted rashly, or it risks giving the enemy breathing room and causing self-inflicted damage. Take rare earths. Reducing exports shrinks the entire supply chain's capacity. Storage firms must increase warehousing, and surplus staff and equipment must shift to other production lines, all costing money to prepare. This cannot be reversed just because leaders sign an agreement in a moment of joy. A nation is a vast machine, not controlled by one or two people. Trump's team has made the US so chaotic because they oversimplify issues, often issuing policies that are unfeasible or costly to implement. The US, backed by dollar hegemony and dozens of allies' support, can afford such chaos. China cannot. Of course, Trump has portrayed China as an enemy domestically, and anti-China sentiment is now a US societal consensus, which even Trump cannot reverse. But the US, whether in politics, economics, or military, struggles to ensure victory over China. If it pursues adventurous policies against China, It risks outcomes more humiliating than economic warfare. I speculate Trump's easier move is to put Taiwan on the negotiating table, letting China gain it through a deal. Even without a deal, the U.S. cannot stop China's unification process. Better to cash in on Taiwan's remaining value for tangible benefits. For China's government, Taiwan is a non-negotiable core interest, and much of China's military buildup targets the Taiwan issue. If the U.S. offers a reasonable price, China wouldn't mind limited concessions for U.S. neutrality on Taiwan. This isn't because China fears fighting the U.S. military, but because Chinese people still feel ethnic kinship with Taiwanese. Otherwise, with China's national strength, unification wouldn't have dragged on so long. For Taiwan's government, the U.S. is its last bastion of independence. If the U.S. clearly abandons military protection, Taiwan has no choice but to negotiate with the mainland and accept peaceful unification, as the military disparity is too vast for comparison. Finally, the China-U.S. confrontation wasn't China's choice, but was imposed by the U.S. government. U.S. politicians' insulting remarks about China far exceed what's needed for ideological rivalry. For instance, Vance called Chinese people peasants and said U.S. revival cannot rely on a foreign servant class. Such outrageous remarks shattered China's last hopes for U.S. goodwill. Winning the competition with the U.S. is now a Chinese societal consensus. Americans shouldn't think they're still the world's sole superpower, guaranteed to defeat China. They should consider how to coexist peacefully with Chinese people. The Earth is big enough. It's the 21st century. Developing technology, improving lives, exploring space. Aren't these better choices? You think fighting Afghanistan or Iraq, or bullying Palestine and Syria means you can take on China?